Joining me now is CEO Finance with Mukhtar Muhammed. It's nice to have you join me.
Thank you.
This morning.
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, those of you who are into the financial space, who understand the nairametrics of how these things work in relation to the GDP, in relation to standard of living and all of that, you would say that there's nothing wrong in borrowing. I know you would have heard these from Nigerians, how concerned they are when it comes to the debt profile rising. 33 trillion now with the approval of this $22 billion. What is there to be worried about?
Well, there's ordinarily there shouldn't be anything to be worried about when you look at the GDP to the debt profile. But when you look at the revenue to the debt profile, then you have every cause to worry about, because if you look at our budget, about almost 30% of our budget is going to be used for debt servicing. The other one, what we have for infrastructure is just not, I mean, what we have for debt servicing is more than what we have for infrastructure.
More than what we have as for capital expenditure.
Yes, yeah. So we have a challenge there. But when you look at the current borrowing, the current one, you see a lot of projects that at the end, they will have a bandwagon effect on Nigeria economy. They could help develop the economy. They could help us move to the type of industrialization we want to be. Especially when you look at the borrowing this time that was approved, with only some, you look at one for Kano Rail project, you look for the Mambela Plateau and other agricultural. But the challenge there is when you look at $500 million for digitalization of NTA. It's a cause for worry. It's a cause for worry because
the minister of information, he was quoted sometime as saying that they want to compete with international media stations in the US.
Have they finished competing with TVC? Have they finished competing with other local television stations? They should start from there. The minister got it all wrong, because CNN is not a government-driven outfit. You look, it was just about South African Broadcasting Corporation. It's even owned both by private and public sector. You don't run what I thought the minister should be saying was to look for good investors and come in and then make NTA the best hub in Africa in terms of news, like a CNN of Africa, because they have the infrastructure, they have the landmass, but they don't have
the coverage and the reach.
So what they need to do was develop the equipment to do that. But for you to come in and tell Nigerians that you want to compete with CNN, I mean, that is very appalling. That's very appalling. So using a $500 million for that, I think is uncalled for with the current economic situation that we are in. Well,
if he says so, maybe let's hope that the media he wants is to make it the best in the world, maybe.
Well, I have concern because I don't want to talk about that so much.
But let's leave that and certainly come back home a little bit. Now, some of the projects that you feel that if these monies are channeled into are going to have a turnaround. We see the second Niger Bridge is ongoing. The construction is ongoing. I've been there and I saw the construction myself. Now, the real project you talked about is another thing. But how long would these things take to for Nigerians to begin to see the impact on the economy and the turnaround?
We need to wait. Remember that the debt that is coming into the country is not going to come up immediately. It's going to take some time for this National Assembly have approved it. Remember that even the Chinese people are having problems because of the agreement that we have with the Mambela Plateau project with Sunrise in Europe, and that issue has been resolved according to the Minister for Justice, and they were able to resolve that issue over the weekend, Attorney General of the Federation. So that shows that the Chinese are ready to go. And remember, this Mambela Plateau has been out there for the past 40 years. We've been trying to do it. So that would be a very huge project. You talk about the second Niger, which is good. But the challenge is that we just need to just take it easy when it comes to borrowing, because our challenge is not in the borrowing. Our challenge is actually in the revenue to pay off this debt. And so if you do your current calculation based on today's revenue, then before Nigeria will finish paying this debt, and be rest assured that this year the government is still going to borrow again, because they're already doing the Euro bond, so there's still going to be a lot of borrowing. So if you look at the current borrowing, by and by what we've borrowed thus far, it's going to take us to 2040 to finish paying those debts.
Wow.
If there is no any.
Well, we've been running a deficit budget all the while over the years in order to pay, money set aside to pay, or at least finance the budget all the while. Well, Mukhtar Muhammed, thank you so much for your insight.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Now joining us is CEO Finance with Mukhtar Muhammed himself. Good morning.
Morning.
Nice to see you.
Thank you.
You're
welcome to the program. Yeah. Well, let's begin from this concern over the $22.7 billion loan now, which was granted by the Senate, of course. Where do you fall in this whole dispute? Are you for or against the loan?
It depends on which of the loan. I'm for this particular loan. If you look at what they say the loan wants to do, just only one item I'm worried about, and that has to do with the $500 million for the digitalization of NTA. Every other one I think is fine. It has an effect on every Nigeria. You talk about power, the Mambela Plateau has been a project that for the past 40 years, we've not been able to come up with it. So if finally we're getting it right there, that's fine. You look at the Kano Rail, that would boost commerce within the region. You look at the road network they want to use this money for. So for me, I'm good with that, but I only have a challenge when it comes to government being in media, trying to draw media, and with the comment that came from the minister competing with CNN, whereby I think they should start by competing with TVC and others.
Now, when it comes to the issue of debt and what it is going to be used for, those arguments are things we've always heard.
Sure.
Even from the days of the military, where monies are being borrowed, they certainly tell you one thing, what we're going to use it for, and it looks beautiful on paper. What do you think is the difference between that and now that you have confidence in?
Number one, with all fairness, we have a president that wants to do the right thing, him as a person. Then number two, the people are more aware of this project now. People go out to look out for this project to see whether these projects are really being done. I mean, you told us you borrow money for this project. People, thank God for social media, and people will go up and follow, and the freedom of information bill also has helped us to be able to. So what is going to happen is that most Nigerians should really come to terms with that this is our project, this is our money. We need to know what is happening to it. If this loan finally comes in, is this project want to start? What is the startup time? The only thing we have challenged that sometimes you don't even know when these loans have been granted. And remember that these loans are not granted in cash, they are granted in terms of equipment. That is where my challenge is now. Equipment and manpower do not originate from Nigerians. They all come from the borrower. The person that gave us the money, the lender tells us what equipment they bring, who is going to work on that project, and after that project, they want to sign an agreement to manage this project. Those are the intricacies that we need to know as Nigerians. Are we going to have the professionals come in there, look at this, your agreement on this project managers, and begin to tell Nigerians, look, if you have to do it like this, you have to do it like this. That's my challenge.
How much of local content will go into procuring and ensuring that?
Definitely there's no local content, because as it stands, there's no any local content. It's going to come from China. When it's coming from China, they are going to come with it. No, we should get it clear. No physical cash is coming to the hands of the government. These are going to be in terms of equipment, in terms of manpower. And some of this payment will be done right there in China. So those money are not finding their way into Nigeria.
Wow.
All right. Mukhtar Muhammed, well, thank you very much for those insights.
Thank you.
Well, joining us now is CEO Finance with Mukhtar Muhammed. Welcome.
Thank you.
And then,
great to see you.
Thank you.
But what do you think now? Will there be a need, or is this we just have to face reality? Because the minister has said she may have to bring the budget back to the lawmakers for a review.
That's surprising. That wasn't surprising. Right from the first day that budget was approved, I said it here on TVC that it's a budget that almost looked like failing, because the oil benchmark at the day the budget was approved was taken to the National Assembly. They tagged the oil benchmark at that day, I think, at $60 per barrel. And at that day, the oil was already selling for $54 per barrel. So we knew that, and still they still went ahead. That's why I think the legislator did not do due diligence to that. Now, what happened, apparently has happened, is that Nigeria have no savings. So whatever amount we make from oil, we just spend it, or because we did not give room for the excess of the excess crude account, or whatever we call it, the sovereign wealth fund, whereby we have savings that we can use to invest and save for
the future.
For the future. So now, once there's any external shock, as regards the price of crude, what is happening now, then there's fear, and that's why you saw the fear by economists and other Nigerians that it's like the naira will be devalued, because when you look at our revenue and you look at where we're coming from, and you look at where we are now with the oil benchmark, and then not only that, the reduction in production. It's a reduction in production, and there must still be several cuts, thinking of another cut. So that is going to affect our revenue. That's where the challenge is. Our challenge is not the debt to GDP. Our challenge is the debt to revenue. It's like you say you have you're just collecting debt based on your GDP, and then you're forgetting your revenue base, because your revenue base is what you use to pay the debt, not your GDP.
Now, there has been much talk about the issue of diversification of the economy to ensure that the economy has a strong base, so that we're not leaning on oil with the volatility. Anything that happens to the oil, the economy falls back in there. Economists are saying the way things are going, and you know the oil benchmark, in fact, the price keeps dropping. It keeps dropping in the last few days, and all of that. There's another recession in the horizon.
Well, South Africa is in recession, so recession is no more new to African countries, especially when you're a big economy. But I don't think we should entertain that fear. With all fairness to this government, I think they've tried in the area of diversification of the economy. If you look at statistics that come from the National Bureau of Statistics, you realize that the non-oil sector has been contributing very well to the GDP of Nigeria, especially the agricultural sector. Even if some of us are still canvassing for competitive advantage, trying to make sure that we have one point that when you talk of cassava or talk of cocoa, you say when you talk of cassava, you can come to Nigeria. Just like when you talk of cocoa, you talk of Ghana. That's what we are thinking. That's what we economists are saying the government should do. But by and large, I think the government have done well, especially creating the window of import-export windows. They have been able to help Nigerians entrepreneurs export some of our products outside. I think they've done well in diversifying of the economy. But you know, like I say, you cannot diversify your economy when your main source of income is not very strong. So you still depend on your main source of income. What you earn for your main source of income, you use to diversify your economy. That is why, because we are not having more savings for our main source of income, that's why we are taking up to borrowing. So that's the challenge we have. We still need to diversify our economy, but that diversification will come from our main source of income. And that's what we used to key into other sectors.
That means, and that is because Nigeria had squandered the monies that came, or all the revenues that came from, because in the at least about 10 years ago, Nigeria raised a lot of monies from the oil sector.
Absolutely.
Yes, absolutely. And remember that we had the SS crude account, and then we had the buffer, even when the world global economy was on recession. We have a buffer because we created that buffer. Remember, this buffer was started by Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala when he came in with the SS crude account. They say it was illegal. Then they make sure they take it to the sovereign wealth fund during the era of Goodluck Jonathan. I think what were politics that came to play. Remember, at the time they wanted to make Goodluck Jonathan the president at that time, the governors, the very powerful governors forum, had to insist that they must make sure that the SS crude account, which they felt was illegal, must be split for all tier of government. And that was where our challenges started. Even if we started to maintain the SS crude account, of recent we just realized that the 3 billion was taken out of that account and the governments are just shut. But I just think that we may have failed in that period. There's still a lot of work to be done. And unfortunately for this government, I think they have not gotten it right in terms of the oil price raise regime. The highest they've gotten is just like $70 per barrel. And when they came in, oil price was as low as $34 per barrel. So it's a big challenge.
And South Africa has appointed Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala now to the Economic Council.
with Goodluck Jonathan, giving her, assuring the country that they are making a very good decision. But what about, the flight of what's been established as, flight of foreign capital now? They say they're going on to safer havens. Is that an issue for you too?
Yes, it's an issue because Nigeria depends so much on foreign direct investment. No economy can survive without foreign direct investment. And since they are coming of this administration, the foreign direct investment have nosedived. It's went to about 70% one time, now it's going about 80%, which is not good. Now, what we have, even when the government says, we attract foreign investors, what we have is portfolio investors. And portfolio investors are not here to stay. They are here to make their money and then get out of the market when the economy looks volatile. When the economy looks fragile, they come in. And when they make a lot of money, when they see that it's volatile, they begin to crash out. And they normally play the equity space, equity market. That's why you see our stock market is so volatile. When they come in, it seems to be going up, and when they are going out, it seems to be going down. So, but on the long run, is the foreign portfolio investor that in turn into the foreign direct investors that are ready to stay for the long haul. But they need to look at your economic indices. They need to see how you are running your economy. They need to see the rule of law being played. They need to see respect for technological driven economic. Then also look at intellectual property. How much do we protect all these things? Once they see that is not there, so what they try to do is to make as much as they can and then go out of it and leave.
What is the role of private sector here? The point there is Nigeria engaging the private sector enough? Because if you give the space to private sector, they will bring in their own money. They will bring in their professional, they will bring in their skill.
That's why we have a challenge as a nation, because if you look at the amount of borrowing, government seems to do more of the borrowing than even the private sector. In a developed economy, you see borrowing more of the private sector, try to galvanize the economy, try to get loan from banks, try to make sure the interest rate comes down. Because when there are a lot of people borrowing and the bank has a lot of liquidity, it comes in and they begin to create up the SME spaces, innovation begins to come. It's not the aid that we get from China or this country that will survive. It's what we do with our SME, the innovation that comes from them seems to be what will survive. Because let me tell you, they come and build a borehole. I'm going to give you two scenarios. If you have an NGO, they come to build a borehole here. They put out the borehole and they leave. And after some time, the borehole is not working again. It's no more giving water to that community. They are gone, so you need to call them back to come and fix the borehole for you.
And that will cost money.
That will cost money. But when you have set up an SME, give an instance, you set up a company, it will not die. It will keep on regalvanizing the economy, creating jobs, bringing more innovations. That is where we are lacking as a nation. We need to get to that point whereby we encourage SMEs to stay, and then we build our economy. Nigeria must take ownership of their own economy. That should be the advantage of saying we don't have the foreign direct investors. How much ownership are we taking of our economy?
All right.
Ukhtar Muhammed, well, thank you very much for your contributions. We have really short time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Let's